lady cleric named Toka and her master Jiro look upon the sky, and then they spot a dangerous monster army slowly approaching towards them. Jiro starts talking about an ancient legend, but Toka doesn't seem very interested in hearing about this. Some soldiers decide to fire their weapons at the incoming monster, but it's of no use as the monster simply spits out the spear as if it's a toothpick. Seeing the current situation, Jiro decides to jump into action, much to Toka's dismay. He activates his holy sword and merges with Toka to awaken his ice powers, after which he openly challenges the monster. It tries to attack him, but he uses his ice powers to freeze it. The soldiers celebrate upon seeing this, as they identify Jiro to be a paladin. However, the monster breaks free of the ice, so he has to land another finisher move on it. 30 years later, we see a small jellyfish monster making it to the shore, but he gets stomped on by a guard. Inside a giant castle, a commander scolds his soldier for yawning and looks at a female prisoner named Kumi. She suddenly breaks loose and smacks the captain with a door, after which she goes to steal some chicken drumsticks. The guards chase after her in a hectic sequence, and then she jumps off the top of the castle into the water. The captain and his team panic, so they try to retrieve Kumi, but she makes her way towards a boat where she runs into Jiro. They make an awkward introduction, after which Kumi jumps from ship to ship. Jiro doesn't care and goes back to minding his business. Some guards ask him if he saw Kumi, so he points them in the right direction. He wants to drink some booze, but realizes that his bottle is empty. Now Kumi continues her escape, but bumps into a lady who is also known as Kumi. She ruins Lady Kumi's flowers, so she offers an entire stack of coins as compensation. Lady Kumi says that one coin is more than enough, and then she notices that Kumi is soaking wet. Lady Kumi helps dry her off, after which we see Lord Mezumi, who is being briefed about Kumi's escape. He refers to her as prototype number 22 and tells his men to get her back as soon as possible. Later, Lady Kumi dresses up Kumi and makes her look very pretty. The next day, Jiro walks around downtown, feeling demotivated, but then he runs into a cat girl named Maya, who tells him that there's a monster job waiting for him. This interests Jiro, so he gets some more details and carries on with his walk. We see Kumi roaming around as well, and she spots a pretty gem. That's when Maya shows up and says that it's made from monster parts, just like most of the other items in the kingdom. Kumi spots a ring on Maya's cat and learns that it's the Ring of Promise. She is told that whoever wears this ring will save the world from certain doom. Kumi instinctively wears the ring, and it naturally goes into her finger. This shocks Maya, but she says that the legend is anyways a myth. Now Jiro gets into a line so that he can join the others in the monster hunt. He is unconcerned as usual, and then he mentions that he always carries his own way. Meanwhile, we see the Majesty, who is ordering her squads to continue fighting the increasing number of monsters despite the heavy casualties. This upsets her lead commander, and she rebukes the Majesty in front of her colleague. Now we see the monster Jiro is hunting, so an alert is sounded all over town. This news also reached Kumi and Maya, after which we see the monster attacking one of the hunters. This angers Jiro, so he gets to work and saves the hunter. The others take this chance to attack the monster with their explosive arrows and defeat it. Everyone celebrates this victory, and Lord Mezumi gets intrigued by Jiro. At night, everyone indulges in some drinks and celebration, but Jiro doesn't seem bothered at all. Later, Mezumi comes to have a chat with him, but Jiro asks him to get straight to the point. Mezumi wants to recruit Jiro for his army, but he says no and walks away. Now Kumi and Maya decide to go home and sleep, but they run into some soldiers who chase after them. They fire some arrows into Kumi, and then we see a headless monster making an appearance. Kumi's rings start to act up, and then the darkness begins to cover her. Much to everyone's shock and horror, her powers turn some soldiers into stone, and then she erupts into a massive flame. Jiro notices her, and then he gets flashback to his past. Meanwhile, the monster attacks the town and everyone runs away from it. Jiro manages to keep Kumi calm as he grabs her and takes her inside the water. He absorbs her darkness and summons his sword, after which he scolds Kumi for not being accompanied by a paladin like himself. Now Jiro pairs himself with Kumi by kissing her, while Mia watches from a distance. The transformation begins in an epic fashion, and Kumi turns into an overpowered source of angel energy. she gets absorbed by Jiro so that he can use her strength to fight the giant monster. Chaos resumes at the kingdom, and then Jiro shows up to fight the monster. He prepares to launch his first attack, but Kumi is a little nervous because it's her first time inside a man. Jiro doesn't have time to explain himself, so he simply attacks the monster. He seemingly dominates at first, but gets smacked away when the monster reveals its face. Kumi asks him if he's alright, but he says that he's just had way too much to drink. Jiro attacks the monster again, but it's way too tough to penetrate. Luckily, Kumi spots that its eye might be a weak point, so Jiro unleashes a finisher move to kill the monster with his sword. Now Kumi and Jiro separate, and it causes him to faint. Kumi panics upon seeing him like this, but Maya shows up to take the couple to safety. The next day, Mesami shows up to inspect the scene, and he finds traces of miasma left behind by Kumi after merging with Jiro. He figures a paladin has taken Kumi away, so he tells his men to hurry up and find her. Meanwhile, Kumi and Maya explore the town, and Kumi treats herself with some candy. Some sages gather around to perform a ritual on the dead monster, and then we are taken to a flashback where Jiro is seen trying to revive Toka, who has been killed by a monster. Our hero wakes up from his nightmare, and it even gets worse when he hears Maya telling Kumi that he wants to marry her. He immediately clears the confusion and asks Kumi how she doesn't know anything about clerics. She remains confused, so Jiro explains how clerics need paladins to maintain control of their powers. He asks Kumi why the Empire is chasing after her, but she doesn't say anything. Jiro loses his patience and leaves, after which he tells Kumi to make herself scarce. Later at night, Maya laments the amount of food she has to make for Kumi because of her massive appetite. Kumi goes on to say that she liked Jiro's smell, and it makes Maya curious. The duo ends up feasting on a meal at a pub, and they run into Lady Kumi as well. Everyone seems to be having a good time, but then Mesami's men show up to look for Kumi. She panics upon seeing them, and this causes her to lose control of her powers. She accidentally kills one of the men, so Maya knocks her out before things get out of control. Then she willingly surrenders, much to the confusion of Lady Kumi. Mesami is happy to find Kumi again, but we also learned that Maya had stolen Jiro's sword earlier. Our hero soon realizes what's happened, and he decides to summon his sword. This causes Maya to float as the sword is tied to her, and it leads to a hilarious sequence. After a lot of searching around, Jiro bumps into Lady Kumi and asks her for information. He looks tired, so she offers him some flowers and reveals that the girls were kidnapped by the Imperial Army. She also seems to know that Kumi was created inside a lab, but Jiro refreshes himself and continues with his search. The girls wait patiently with Maya, still stuck to the ceiling. But Jiro makes it to them after beating up countless guards. He's upset with Maya for pulling a fast one on him, but rescues the girls anyway and fights more guards. Mesami is notified about this, so he orders his men to stop Jiro, but he uses his sword to first fly, and then swim through the ocean. The threesome makes it to an awesome-looking Imperial ship, and then Jiro decides to merge with Kumi. She expects him to kiss her again, but is sad to learn that the kiss was just a one-time thing. After merging, Jiro unleashes a sword upon Mesami's ship, and it sinks down. The next day, Jiro agrees to help the girls till they reach the next city. And then he gets into an argument with Maya, who wants to steal parts of his ship. Mesami doesn't look too bothered about what happened with his ship and Kumi, so he pops a pill and smiles as he plots something evil. Now our heroes roam around in the rain, and Kumi is fascinated by this occurrence in nature. However, Jiro is wary of Kumi being an artificial prototype, so he keeps an eye on her. Suddenly, the group comes across a wide ravine, and while it looks beautiful, the pathway is closed. Realizing that they'll need to set up camp for a bit, the team goes to a nearby village, and Maya has a word with the beast people there. In a confusing sequence, Maya makes animal sounds at a similar-looking dog girl, who does the same. The village folk decide to give our hero some shelter, and Kumi goes to play with the kids who seem to be fascinated with Jiro, even though he doesn't feel the same way. Kumi has fun with the kids and notices a little redhead named Tilly, who acts shy and runs away when she tries to talk to her. Later, our heroes sit down for a meal, and Jiro asks if he needs to hunt down some beast. An overpowered hunter named Yagol makes his acquaintance with the group and mentions that the beasts this year are hard to take down. Kumi is intrigued by Dagol and asks Jiro if he's stronger than him. He acts distant, so Kumi goes out for some fresh air and finds Tilly on a tree trying to catch some insects. She falls down, so Daigo's assistant Melon comes to her rescue. Kumi helps stitch up Kumi's wound and gets introduced to Melon. He reveals that he and Tilly are orphans, but have always been loved by the people of this village. Now Tilly spots something odd with Kumi, but doesn't say what it is later. An elephant monster attacks the village, but Diago shows up and fights it with his brute strength. He and his team unite to defeat the monster, but they come across another one which has red eyes. The overpowered elephant monster defeats Diago and his men, so they rush back to the village. To make matters worse, Tilly goes missing, and Kumi grows worried, so Melon goes looking for her. Luckily, Tilly shows up and offers Melon's sword to Kumi. The cleric girl gets confused, especially when Tilly says she's lonely. And then she learns that Tilly has the power to read people's minds. Meanwhile, Melon runs into the elephant beast and gets chased by it. Jiro and the girls go look for him, and eventually the paladin warrior has to attack the elephant beast to save Melon. A fierce battle follows, but Jiro isn't able to defeat the beast with his sword, so he merges with Kumi and proceeds with his moves. It only takes him a single slash to kill the beast, and then he tells Melon to head back to the village, without mentioning what he did to the elephant. However, our heroes remember that they still have the ravine to cross, and then Diago tells Melon that he's in Jiro's debt. The hasty assistant rushes to the group and says that he wants to pay Jiro back for what he did. The grumpy hero eventually agrees to Melon's request, and the group comes back to the village. However, the queen's palace begins to worry, especially because of the news of the red-eyed elephant. And that's the end of part 1. Like, share, and subscribe if you want me to continue. See you soon!